evening, everyone. If we could take our seats, thank you. I really dislike the gavel, but I needed to get your attention. Sorry. Good evening. The meeting of our St. Charles Planning Commission is called to order. Roll call. Colleen Visa.
Here.
Zach Ewald.
Here.
Jeff Funk.
Here.
Gary Gruber. John Fitzgerald.
Here.
Dave Rosenberg. Gina Lawson. Rita Paylight.
Here.
All right. Would you all stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4, presentation of the minutes from our October 7th, 2025 meeting of the Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? All good? All right. So we're going to have a slight adjustment to our agenda this evening as far as the order of our projects. So item 5 was Claiborne Farms, and item 6 was a general amendment to the ordinances of the city of St. Charles. We're going to switch those two this evening at a request of some of our elected officials who are just running late because they did want to be here to be able to hear all of the entirety of the Claiborne Farms project and the public comment for that. So I've spoken to the Plan Commission, and they are all in favor of this. We will do that and take item 6 first. So if we could have staff.
Hello, Emma Field, Planner 1. The City of St. Charles is bringing forth a general amendment application. So this would be amending both the Historic Preservation Code being 17.32.080, Certificate of Appropriateness, and then the General Zoning Code being 17.06, Design Review Standards and Guidelines, and 17.30.030, General Definitions. So this amendment would be changing the process of our Certificate of Appropriateness, which we also call COAs. And COAs are taken out when an applicant is coming to do exterior work on the building. So when they apply for a building permit, they also take out a COA, and then the COA goes before the Historic Preservation Commission for review. And then, so this would be changing the Certificate of Appropriateness requirement to now require anybody that's painting, staining, or changing the masonry surface such as brick or limestone, and specifically the historic district or a landmark to now take out a Certificate of Appropriateness and have it reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission. But no building permit would be required for this, just a Certificate of Appropriateness. And this was brought forth by the Historic Preservation Commission just because the trend of painting has really gone up, especially for buildings in the downtown. So currently property owners are able to paint or stain brick or any other masonry surface with any type of paint or any other material. And the Commission's just concerned that certain types of paint might be harming the brick or masonry surfaces, as well as changing the character of the buildings, and then removing the paint too could also harm a lot of the historic masonry that we have. And then the reason that we put the change in both the design review standards as well is just because the design review standards and guidelines currently outline architectural details required and review of those, where the rest of the code does not have this. And the text makes sure to call out the buildings in the CBD and RT districts, but only specifically historic houses in the historic district, buildings in the historic district, and then landmarks. And then there's also language added for murals, both the definition and also some requirements within the historic preservation, within the design review standards and guidelines. Just how what types of paints, if review of paints that the murals would be using, or how a mural would be attached if it's not being used with paint. So the Historic Commission would be reviewing the certificate of appropriateness, but they would just be reviewing the materials used. It wouldn't be design or color or anything like that. And then when I was doing this research, I reached out to a lot of different communities, both in Illinois, Chicago suburbs, and outside of Illinois. And I found that a lot of other communities, especially specifically in the Chicago suburbs, were looking to do this as well. So they were looking to St. Charles as kind of having an example, and to let them know, how it works with the city of St. Charles. And I also looked to the city of Aurora, because the city of Aurora does have these requirements currently. So, yeah.
Any questions of staff right now?
Yeah, I've got a question. Is it just in landmarked areas, historic areas, or is it?
It's both properties that are in historic districts and as well as landmarks, and landmarks can be in historic districts or outside of historic districts.
So houses outside of that district they wouldn't have to adhere to this?
No, they don't. No, they wouldn't, because this would just be requiring a certificate of appropriateness, and certificate of appropriateness are only for landmarks and historic districts. Yeah, so it wouldn't change anything for people outside.
And just to make sure I understood everything correctly, this is really about making sure that materials that could be used are not going to harm or erode or be detrimental to the facade of the buildings or whatever that material is. It's not so much about, yeah, I don't like that color. Yeah, I don't.
Right, exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, yep.
Just if someone wants to paint their house, siding, trim, windows, are they required to get a certificate of appropriateness?
No, this would be specifically for masonry surfaces.
Okay. All right. And this would be to all homes in the district, right?
Yeah.
There's the main district, and then there's two smaller districts on the west side, and then there's some landmark homes that are outside the district.
Yes.
Or landmark properties.
Yeah, it would be those properties.
So it would be all of those components.
Yes.
Okay.
What if the house was already painted, or the building?
Yeah, so if they wanted to come in and repaint it, they would just come in for a certificate of appropriateness to make any change, including trying to sand off or power wash. We would hope to guide them in a way that wouldn't disturb the brick or masonry surface, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any examples where painted masonry can have a historical significance?
That's a good question. Potentially, but I think what we've seen mostly is that a lot of it's been painted in the last 20 or so years, where a lot of this masonry surfaces, brick, limestone, are 100+ years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen it when I did my research. I saw it on the East Coast a lot, where masonry was painted originally.
Okay.
So I just wondered if there's any significance in that. And the main reason for this is for maintenance?
Yeah, maintenance, to make sure that, the brick and limestone, what have you, stay intact and keep that historical nature to it.
So you don't think the maintenance would be the onus of the owner, of the building owner? I mean, what they would, maintaining the building. I mean, if the brick is falling apart, if the brick is starting to chip away, and they go, oh, I know, I'll fix it by painting it. And if they know that they have to paint it, it's forever painted.
Right.
That's their choice.
Right, yeah.
So that's where I'm
so
wondering.
that's why we would require that certificate of appropriateness, and they'd come before the commission, and then the commission can advise them kind of better ways to go about it, whether it's, how to fix it up, how to remove it, what have you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that if you paint certain masonry or stone or limestone incorrectly, it does trap moisture and does more damage to that masonry surface. So I think that's really what staff is trying, when in terms of maintenance, I think that's what they are trying to regulate. It's not to say, no, you can't do this. It's more, if you're going to do it, you need to use the correct paint, the correct materials.
Yeah, I understand.
And much of the district already requires these approvals for changes to facade already. Correct, Emma?
Right, yeah. So this is just adding to the list. as well.
I guess I have a little bit of a concern about, if you will, a bit of overreach.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not requiring somebody who wants to paint their siding or trim to come in to do a color scheme checkup, or you're not directing them or providing the same level of detail of, hey, you shouldn't use this paint, you should use that paint for this type of wood or this type of finish. So this seems almost like micromanaging a particular thing that a property owner and a homeowner with their, if they're not doing it themselves, which probably most people aren't, they're hiring somebody to come in and do it. You would think that they would consult with them on appropriate materials, and you know, certainly certain types of paints, whether you're painting wood or you're painting masonry, cost more than others. But those are just, to me, decisions that a homeowner makes related to their overall scale and budget and all the other factors that go into their life.
Right. Yeah.
I'm also, I mean, I realize this was a public hearing and a notice, but I doubt that anybody here is here to talk about this topic tonight. From the public, I'm saying from the public. And yet we're about to make a recommendation or close a public hearing, or I mean, that's one of the steps we can make, to close a public hearing that doesn't allow people to speak on this, who will be directly affected, because they'll have to all of a sudden come in for that topic. Now, really realizing that masonry isn't on every home in the district, but still it is. You know, it is a topic, and I'm just wondering, is there? I mean, I would personally recommend that we not close the public hearing, that we extend it for at least one more meeting, because I think that being able to say to people, hey, there were 2 public hearings that you had an opportunity to come and talk, so that if they go into the building department, or I think you would get people who honestly think that they don't need a COA to paint masonry, and they'll get started, and then somehow they're going to get stopped because they didn't get a COA. And I think that's like a whole logistical problem and a mess for staff, you know, more at the COA level and the building department level, because they're like, well, when did this come up? And, you know, all of these topics start to become contentious. So I'd like to say that, you know, we would not close the public hearing and maybe put it out on another notice, however that gets done normally, okay? Because we are potentially agreeing or passing it on to P&D and all the other steps that go into making a general amendment that then become required of people. And you might find that they didn't feel like they had a real chance to come in and speak on this. May not change our mind or may not change our elected officials' mind, but I think hearing from them would be good. And I doubt anybody is here tonight on this topic. I mean, I emailed a couple of friends of mine who are in this district, didn't even think about that this was the topic tonight, and they are not available to come, even just to think about it. So I think it's easily missed, and I would just recommend that we continue the hearing.
Before we can talk about continue, Emma, regarding the what the historic preservation or the commission viewed. As part of their purview, they already recommended adopting this into their guidelines, correct?
Yes, yeah, this was discussed multiple times at multiple historic preservation meetings.
And with that process, if it's adopted into their guidelines, does that already require a COA? And is placing in the zoning code just an additional mechanism for enforcement, or does the city require it to be in the zoning code outside of just their guidelines? So does it need to be in both places is what I'm asking.
Yeah, this would be a change to both the zoning code and the historic preservation code as well.
Okay, so if if one body recommended no and one already recommended yes, could it still be in their guidelines?
It would change it probably wouldn't go for the design review guidelines and standards as well as definitions, but it could potentially go to change the historic preservation certificate of appropriateness part of the code. But yeah, for the renotice, it'd be 15 to 30 day period in order to renotice.
And Peter, for clarification, are you asking that a courtesy notice be provided to the members within the district? Because what was the notice for this? Was it just to the paper and
Yeah, it was to the paper.
as a text amendment? So it just goes to the newspaper.
Right. And so realize, I'm sure all the right procedures are followed and stuff, but given people's general propensity for less control of their life than more control of their life, it was interesting that, that no one's here for this topic tonight, which I would find quite surprising. Just given people think, hey, I can just paint, and it's not a big deal. So it was just a thought from me. I mean, certainly it's open to the, the commission to discuss or to determine whether they think that's a good idea. I mean, and given that this is the first time that this is being talked about, I don't know that one more month in the scheme of, of what this is going to affect long term is a big deal, or not.
Are they still required to get a permit for the painting?
No, it would not require a building permit, no. Just a certificate of appropriateness.
So it's similar to, it's basically similar to getting a permit, right? You need approval in a landmark historic.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
How will someone know that they need this? So if this were to get passed and this were to go through, how does the homeowner know that they need it?
Yeah, I was thinking of sending, so I currently, when I started here, I send a letter out to all homeowners, just introducing myself and kind of giving people the spiel of what a certificate of appropriateness is, because I was realizing that not everybody knew that, so I was thinking of maybe sending out another letter just to let people know, and if they have any questions, be able to have a contact for it. But just also letting people know that we're not telling them they can't do it, it's just more of a review in front of the in front of the historic preservation.
Personally, I don't view this as much of a significant change. I mean, they already have to get a COA if they're changing the siding on their house. So, while it's not paint, if you're changing the siding, you still have to go through these processes already. So it's something that if you're part of this district, you're already, there's already an established process. There's already an expectation that you do have to go through this extra layer to protect. And most times, this commission works with the property owners to approve and get things done pretty quick. And I believe staff does have some ability to even approve stuff administratively on.
Yeah, for a few small things, yeah.
Yeah. But painting is a little bigger than maybe, if people have in the mindset that they, and I know you're also talking about the buildings on Main Street here, right? And I tell you, some of them look better with the paint job. But it's, in their idea, they think they're freshening their building. They're, so I don't know if it's.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be necessarily, this wouldn't be proposing that people aren't allowed to, especially ones that are already painted, just how to take care of.
I'm talking about the new ones, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm with Peter. I think we should do something to get word out a little better maybe, and then extend the public hearing.
I mean, we can continue this, to whatever works within the next notice for time frame. And if we still have nobody, then we can
take a vote.
Move forward from there. I don't think, again, it hurts anything from a staff or the historic preservation. Time of year isn't really like the time of year that most people are thinking about painting anything on the exterior of their homes, only if they really had to, because of some damage or something. But as just a general course of maintenance, I doubt that November and December are months that most people look to paint the exterior of their home.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right. So would there be a motion to continue this hearing to the next available time? Yes, please.
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, I may have missed this, but did you open a public hearing and ask if there's anyone present that wishes to speak to this item?
Make it official.
Maybe. Pay attention to all these things. Is that right? I guess we can. Yes, I apologize. So is there anyone here to speak on this topic tonight?
Oh.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Al Watts. I'm with Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley. We're at 80 Indiana Street here in St. Charles. All I wanted to say was just as far as painting masonry, I think Zach was correct in explaining that painting masonry cuts off the masonry. Masonry has to breathe, and if it does, paint will keep it from breathing. And that is the reason primarily why the commission wants to take a look at this. If it's already been painted, that's already been done. And if it looks great now, in 10, 20 years, it's not going to look so great. So that is the reason why I think the commission is looking at doing this. If you want, we can also work with staff to get additional documentation that explains that from masonry experts. So if you have any questions, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Last call for tonight, anyway? No? Okay. That's Bruce. All right. So is there a motion to continue the hearing until our next meeting?
So moved.
Second? Well, I'll second. All right. So we have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing. So we'd like to vote on that. Zach?
No.
Okay. Colleen Visa?
No.
Jeff Funk?
No.
John Fitzgerald?
No.
Rita Paylighter?
Yes.
Myself? All right. So then do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Jeff Funk? For closing the public hearing.
Yes.
Colleen Visa?
Yes.
John Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Rita Paylighter?
No.
Myself? No. All right, so we'll close the public hearing, and we'll go to item 6B, which is the discussion and recommendation. So, any further information from staff or anything that we wanted to consider before we deliberate on this? Nope. All right. So is there a motion related to the general amendment, the masonry surfaces?
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation to approve the general amendment to Chapter 17.06, Design Review Standards and Guidelines, Chapter 17.30, Definitions, and Chapter 17.32, Historic Preservation, regarding painting and staining of masonry surfaces as drafted by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Colleen Visa.
Yes.
Zach Ewell.
Yes.
Jeff Funk.
Yes.
John Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Rita Paylighter.
No.
Myself, no. All right. Item 6 is completed. We move on to item 5. All right. So this is a concept plan submitted by MI Homes for Claiborne Farm, located at 36 West 368 Redgate Road. The purpose of our concept plan review is to allow an applicant to obtain informal input on their conceptual development prior to filing for formal applications and preparing all the detailed drawings and plans. The concept process also serves as a forum for citizens, neighboring property owners to ask questions, express their views on the potential development. The procedure tonight will start with staff comments, followed by a presentation by our applicant. After that, the Plan Commission will ask questions if they have. Then members of the public wishing to speak will be given a chance to do so. And at the end, Plan Commission members will offer their final feedback to the applicant. The Plan Commission does not take any action tonight, approving or denying this project at the concept plan stage. After this meeting, this concept plan will be discussed at the Planning and Development Committee of our City Council on Monday, December 8th. If the applicant decides to pursue the project They would need to be filed for another public hearing, and notice would be provided to all property owners, adjacent property owners, excuse me. I ask that anyone who wishes to speak tonight be recognized, then stand at the lectern. Please state your name and address, and spell your last name for the record. I just want to also comment that we received, the Plan Commission members received 4 emails that were printed and provided to us prior to the meeting, and they will be made part of public record by staff. There was one from Cheryl Talak, Terry Wider, David Bujanovich, and Sarah Hoffer. Most of this was commentary not in favor of this project, but these would be available for public record through staff if you are interested in the specifics that these individuals provided, since they will not be available tonight. Ready for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. The concept plan being discussed tonight was submitted by MI Homes for the northern 38 acres of the property known as Redgate Farm. The property is unincorporated, and annexation to St. Charles would be requested if the development moves forward. Proposed is a single-family subdivision consisting of 83 lots. Proposed zoning is RS3 with a PUD. Staff report was provided prior to the meeting tonight, and the report lists a number of comments that would need to be addressed if the developer decides to move forward with this project. MI Homes is represented tonight by Russell Whitaker, who will now present the concept plan.
Good evening. Russell Whitaker, Rosenova and Whitaker here this evening on behalf of MI Homes as the contract purchaser of the property before the commission this evening. We're here this evening as staff and the chairman outlined on concept review of a proposed residential subdivision to be known as Claiborne Farm. This is not a formal application for annexation and zoning. We had a resident meeting last week. We tried to explain that to everybody. This is sort of a preliminary look, thumbs up, thumbs down. What are the overall feelings regarding the development concept? So I've got a quick presentation I'll run through here. I can't seem to get that to move though.
I think if you use the arrows on the...
That's what I was trying to do.
Oh, so it's just quick.
Just quick. Yep, no, do it. Can I go? There we go. All right, cool. A couple of quick introductory notes regarding the applicant, MI Homes. So MI Homes has been building homes in the Chicago region since 2007, roughly 20 years. Map on the right shows existing communities where MI is selling homes in blue. New communities are highlighted in yellow. MI has developed a broad reach across the Chicagoland region with homes ranging from first-time homebuyer product in South Elgin to $1 million townhomes in Naperville. The subject property is part of the northernmost section of St. Charles. This contextual map kind of helps you see the overview area where the property is located. I think the map provides interesting context depicting areas of interconnected residential subdivision bound by arterial and collector roadways. You see Route 31 to the east, Redgate Road to the south, Randall Road to the west, Silver Glen to the north. You see a variety of development formulas in this large residential block, including rural farms, county residential development, and residential development in both St. Charles and South Elgin. Despite very different lot metrics and home types, all of these subdivisions are interconnected through a unified street network. The subject property consists of approximately 38 acres and is part of the larger Redgate Farm property. More specifically, the subject property comprises the northernmost 38 acres of the Redgate Farm. Notably, Redgate Farm is a historical landmark in Kane County. The landmark was established pursuant to application of the current owner, James Cook, in 1989. The landmark relates primarily to the existing structures on the property, which is really part of the rationale for the limited scope of the development proposal before the city this evening. In effect, the subject property is comprised of existing agricultural fields and development which would not impact the historical nature of the property in the landmark designation in King County. Here we're looking at how development has occurred around the Redgate Farm property. The first image shows you the agricultural landscape, the rural nature of the property circa 1984. Large lot county development commenced in the early 1980s with acre plus lots abutting Redgate Farm to the west. In the early 2000s, River's Edge developed adjacent to Redgate Farm to the east. Notably, River's Edge is a city of St. Charles development with approximately half-acre lots. Reserve of St. Charles was platted in 2006, approximately 5 years after River's Edge, but was built out over a much longer time period, as is reflected in the aerials before you. You can actually see vacant lots in Reserve as recent as 2020. Reserve bridged the gap between River's Edge and the county residential development. Redgate Farm was effectively surrounded with 1 acre residential lots to the west and approximately half-acre residential lots to the north and the east. While not reflected on these slides, I think it's important to note that the construction of Redgate Bridge and the ultimate development of St. Charles North High School are other important defining features that have continued to reshape the character of the area around Redgate Farm. Here, we're looking at the rendered concept plan that is for consideration by the Commission this evening. MI is proposing 83 lots on approximately 39 acres. As outlined in the staff report, that's a density of approximately 2.2 dwelling units per acre. The base lot configuration is 75 by 125, or approximately 9,400 square feet. There are some oversized lots along the perimeter and a number of irregularly shaped lots, such that the average lot size is almost 12,000 square feet. Under the city's R3 zoning district, the concept plan contemplates 2 deviations. The first is for 31% max building coverage in lieu of 30%. The second is for 30-foot rear yards in lieu of a 40-foot requirement in the underlying zoning district. I would note that these deviations are not standard across all lots. All of the base home configurations can be constructed on all of the lots without deviation from the RS3 standards. The deviations are required only where buyers are selecting structural options that would maximize the buildable area of the plan, of the specific floor plan. We'll take a look at floor plans in just a second. I think that will help flesh out the basis of the deviations. I would call out the open space at the northwest corner and the southeast portion of the site. These areas comprise 7.6 acres of open space. These areas will be improved with modern stormwater infrastructure. This should help to address some of the water issues that were discussed with residents during the neighbor meeting just last week. I would note that stormwater management facilities are strategically located at low points where property is currently sheet flowing from the existing agricultural fields. Access is a difficult one. We're proposing a single access point to Rosebud Drive in the River's Edge subdivision. I would note that we're showing a future road stub to the south. The expectation is that a secondary point of ingress and egress would be facilitated with a future additional development on the Redgate Farm property. However, in the interim condition, Claiborne Farms would function with a single point of ingress-egress. The access is designed as a boulevard section with 2 23-foot wide drive aisles to accommodate emergency services. I would also note that a road stub was contemplated north into the reserve of St. Charles. If you look at the north line in our exhibit here, you'll see that between lots 10 and 11, there's a 66-foot wide open space corridor. This corridor aligns with a 66-foot corridor established in the reserve. Unfortunately, there was no dedication of right-of-way. When the platting was done for the reserve, the annexation agreement is expired. We believe the homeowners association owns that property, so there's not a mechanism, it's not a legal structure by which we would be able to make that road connection. We're still concept level details, so there's some additional investigation we would do. That was clearly set up with the intent that it would be a future roadway connection. Unfortunately, we just don't think the documentation was buttoned up correctly. I want to quickly look at floor plans that MI would offer at Claiborne Farm. These floor plans are all part of MI's classic series of homes, so these are very much targeted to move-up buyers. You see plan name in the far left column. Each row then contains details associated with the respective floor plan. At the top, the Essex is the smallest floor plan at 46 foot wide and approximately 2,900 square feet. I would point out, and this is some information that we didn't have when we were at the resident meeting last week, so I kind of wanted to bear this out a little bit. I would point out that the standard depth of the Essex, kind of in the middle, in the middle towards the right, you see ST depth. That's a standard depth, base configuration of each of the homes. I would point out that the standard depth of the Essex model is 43 feet. So when we go, if we were building homes in the subdivision, all homes would be set at the 30-foot front yard line. So in this application, the rear yard of the home would actually be 52 feet from the rear property line on a standard 125-foot depth lot. So I'm just kind of doing some simple math there, right? I've got a 125-foot lot. I'm setting a home at a 30-foot setback. I've got 43 feet of home. What's left over is the space between the back of the home and the rear lot line. Even with structural options, there's no application where the Essex exceeds 30% lot coverage required under the RS3 district, or it gets up to requiring a deviation for the 40-foot rear yard setback. The Sutcliffe, however, presents the opposite extreme. With homes ranging from 3,400 to almost 4,000 square feet, the Sutcliffe pushes the lot coverage and rear yard setback requirements if constructed with all structural options on one of the smallest 75 by 125 lots. The sunroom option is the largest structural option on any of these homes. That's an 11-foot extension off the rear of the home. So if we're taking the Sutcliffe by way of example, that's a 52-foot deep home. You would then have a 63-foot section of the home. Certainly not the entire width of the home would be 63 feet deep, but that sunroom would extend to 63 feet and use all of that space, nearly all of the space to the 30-foot rear build line. All of the homes are 4 or 5 bedroom homes. Options will allow you to select a bathroom configuration between 2.5 and 5.5 bathrooms. A 3-car garage is standard on all but one floor plan. In the far right column, I would note that there are 5 different elevations for each floor plan offered. MI self-regulates anti-monotony. We want to make sure there's a nice mix of different elevations throughout the community. I've got 2 slides of representative elevations here. We're showing a different elevation for each floor plan. The Essex, which we just talked about, is on the left, so that is the smallest floor plan. There's a variety of different architectural styles represented across the elevations. I think the theme is sort of classic American design. All of the homes will be built with hardy or composite siding product, with most of the elevations including a masonry element. You see combinations of lap siding and accent materials such as board and batten on the homes. Different roof lines break up the massing. Details such as corbels, clipped gables, standing seam metal roof, window mullions, and stylistic front doors exhibit the quality of the homes. This second page of elevation shows one of the more modern elevations with the Sutcliffe, which is shown at the bottom. One of the things I think MI does particularly well is color on the homes. White trim is often the only option for most national footprint home builders. If you look at the Lindale option, you see some custom elements incorporated into MI's design with wood-colored posts and gable details, along with monochromatic trim details. Last slide here is representative images from the Sutcliffe model at the Hawthorne Woods Country Club. You see large open floor plan with 2-story elements, a sunroom in the right image, a top right image, coffered ceiling detail in the master bedroom, custom kitchen options in the bottom left image. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the Planning Commission. As I mentioned, MI has a footprint across the Chicagoland region. We're just down the street in South Elgin. Very different product than what we would be building here in St. Charles, but certainly look forward to the opportunity to work with staff, the commission, and the city on plans for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we don't have to be in any particular order, so anybody have any questions, comments to share with MI?
I've got a couple questions,
Please.
regarding the green space. You have all that, plus 6 acres. What's happening in the green space? Is that retention?
Yeah, it's largely retention. I think we would look to dial some of those details in as we move beyond just the concept plan. But for purposes of right now, we're holding that space primarily for detention.
Okay. The other question is, did you say you don't have approvals yet for connection to Rosebud?
We do not. So the property between us and Rosebud is owned by the city. So if this was to move forward, we would be working with the city regarding the possible acquisition of that property from the city to facilitate the connection to Rosebud.
Okay. Have you guys, has the team spoken to any of the neighbors in the area?
We had a resident meeting last week.
Yeah. And how did that go?
You see a lot of people here, right?
In support?
There was, yes. There was a lot of feedback. I think some of it outright objection, some of it constructive. I think there was broad acknowledgement that the comprehensive plan calls for single-family residential development in this location. I personally had good conversation with a number of residents about lot size. The simple question was, hey, you're building lots that are significantly smaller than our lots. And some of the folks I had a very good conversation with, and I said, listen, in 1984, when the first residential happened, it was over 1 acre lots. And then when you came in, if you're in Reserve or if you're in River's Edge, you were half acre lots. So you were half the size of the lots that had been built in the county. And even the county lots were 1/85th of the size of the Redbud farm that existed at that time. So I think there's a trend of development that happens over time. We've seen over the last 20, 30 years that lot sizes have been shrinking. When I think about buyers at this type of community, the buyers are not typically real interested in spending their weekends taking care of their lawn. I had a couple people say, well, I'm not interested in taking care of my lawn either, so I understand that. And so in modern development world, when we're doing this type of subdivision around Chicagoland, we're not, there may be some pie-shaped lots in a subdivision that are half-acre lots, but we're almost never building half-acre lots in modern development scenarios, and I represent MI Homes, Pulte, Lennar, D.R. Horton. I'm missing one there, but we do a lot of this work, and it's just not a metric. It's not a cost-efficient metric to build half-acre lots in today's world. We're trying to be efficient with our dollars, and being efficient with our dollars means narrowing up the lots and trying to build to a little more density. The 2.2 units an acre that we're at is generally characterized as low density in all of the Chicagoland region. So you asked a totally fair question. I kind of took an opportunity to dive in there. There was objection on lot size, but I think some people understood where we were coming from. Other people wanted to see us go matchy-matchy with their lots. I think the other big objection was and I know we're going to hear a lot about it tonight, was the roadway connection. And I kind of understand and can sympathize with residents who think that that's not a good structure for all of the traffic coming in and out of our subdivision. I think the difficult position we're in right now is we don't have another option. I think we've been kind of hunting to see what other options were out there, but in order to begin the conversation here, this is the best we could put forward right now.
What about the lots to the south? I mean, I see this dead end that, which I find a huge issue with, on the south end of the property. I mean, what's the plan for that? You don't even have, are you hoping to get the property to the south in the future, or?
I think
You're not even designing for it. You're not designing for the self-sufficient lot, right? I mean, you would, the dead end, really.
Yeah, I think if we were to look at the metric of how development has occurred in this kind of big block that we looked at, I think there were a number of scenarios where there were dead-end streets, and that's a pretty common metric in today's world, where we're stubbing to a property that we think there's going to be development at in the future so that the road network should be picked up. If we go back to this slide, you look at that entire area, and you've got River's Edge here, which connects up to Reserve here, which connects up, and I couldn't tell you all of the names of the county subdivisions because there's a couple, but you see that it connects into the county subdivision, comes all the way down through this county subdivision comes up into Silver Glen. So
I get it, but my issue is if you build it the way you're going to have it right now, you're going to have problems with fire trucks and what have you, that you're going into dead end. So I guess the question, do you have plans to buy the lot to the south in the future, or no? I mean, or is it just this is hoping that you're gonna strike a deal with the lot to the south? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I was misunderstanding your question, so that's on me. You're right. We would have to do something to create a turnaround at that location, whether it's a cul-de-sac bulb or a hammerhead. There's no plan to buy the property to the south. I think we would love to pick up additional property, but the seller of the property to the south, Mr. Cook, I think his family's owned the property for, on top of my head, I want to say since like 1959. So he's been there for a very long time. It's a historic property. Mr. Cook has no desire to sell more than what we've got under contract right now, and so that's why we've got the plan in front of you.
Okay, so essentially that plan doesn't really work, right? It's the site plan. The way it's drawn.
Mm-hmm.
And
because of the stub between 60 and 61, or because of the access out to
because of that stub, right? Yeah, because you'd have to reconfigure. I mean, my point of view, my perspective, I mean, you're going to have to work out, getting a fire truck in and out of there. I mean, circulation pattern, right? You can't just go to a dead end.
And that could easily become a cul-de-sac at that location. Yeah. So I mean, that's an easy fix. I know the residents pointed that out, and we're also very focused on the access at Rosebud. Yeah. I would point out that, and I think I said it in the presentation, the access on Rosebud is effectively a double road. There's a boulevard section in the middle with two 23-foot sections. So this is something that's been done in other locations where it provides a mechanism for emergency vehicles to use either the north or the south. In the event that there were an emergency on the opposite side of the road.
No, I get it. I get it. It's been done, but the key factor to this is the neighbors, right? And I'm an architect, so I always tell my clients, talk to the neighbors before, and find out what their wishes are. And I'm just looking at the plan. I mean, I see you've got a lot of green space that's internal. Why wouldn't you, focus that green space on the perimeter of the property so you're buffering, because you are reducing the lot size quite a bit. And I get what you're saying, that the trend is smaller lot sizes, and, I somewhat agree with that, but right now you're not looking at this site plan, you're not really adhering to the context to the neighbors, right? Whether that's buffering with landscape, buffering with, around the perimeter, especially to the north, you have, I don't know how many homes up there, but you're butting right up to your property line, and there should be some setbacks there, and you're reducing your rear yard from 40 to 30, which you should be thinking about those buffers and talk to the neighbors, because they're you're the last one to fill this piece of pie, and to be fair to them, I think you need to listen to them and find out what their wishes are, and circulation is a big thing in traffic and what have you, and traffic studies and figuring out how to avoid their concerns, not their concerns, but try to adhere to their concerns and come up with a design that listens to the neighbors. So that's my perspective.
I appreciate those comments.
Yeah, can I just real quick go off of that? And I'm seeing from the staff notes that you're going to have a plan B. I mean, right now that's a well site, and that I can see the markers in the city's investigating whether that, and if that off the little space off of Rosebud turns out to be a operational, doable well, then you're going to have to go internal, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So already you're fighting and the fire department also made note, just asking, that with only one way in and out, all your buildings are going to be required to have sprinklers, correct?
And just to be clear, we just got these comments the other day, so we haven't had a chance to go through and respond to all of them yet. But yes, we understand the feedback that was given by the fire district.
Yeah, okay. Because that's the access, I think, is a big second thought, that needs to be addressed.
Can I ask, what's the price range that you're looking at? I know you don't have it probably set, but what are we looking?
$750 to $850.
From the smallest to the largest?
I mean, it's going to depend on a variety of factors based on the location of the lot, the upgrades that somebody might have, but the price range would be $750 to $850.
Okay, because I think that Jeff made a great point, and it was something that I was looking at, is that I completely appreciate that the world we're living in now is very different than the one in the 80s, and that there's an economies of scale, and they can't do this to break even or to not make money. But I do think that there has to be some kind of, whether it's a cohesiveness or a recognition of the properties that surround it, and to come so dense into this area with only one access point that is uncertain even, it doesn't seem like it's going to, that it makes as much sense. Now, I'm not saying reduce it by half, but I do think that there might be some kind of happy medium when, if you're taking into what Jeff said about providing a bit more green space in a different way, that it might require, and I don't know what that is, I don't know what the numbers are, but that there might have to be a reduction of lots in order to work with the neighbors, configure green space differently so that there are borders and that there's berms and that there's some kind of protection. Because if you look at the north line, if I'm looking at this correctly, like, it's basically the two houses are looking right at each other, and they're used to looking at nothing. So that's quite an eye shock. So, but I appreciate that there's going to be a development here. It's just, how do we make it so that it's just not so aggressive? And I am concerned about, and I know there's just not a solution, and I know you don't have one tonight, but I just think that there's a solution. There has to be something. If there were 83 houses and only one access point, that's concerning for a number of reasons. And I know you're working on that, so I know that. But I just think they're reconfiguring the green space, looking at doing something with these lot sizes. And then I also think, reducing, and staff gave those notes too, reducing that PUD, or adhering to the PUD would be reducing that. Is there any concern that then you are cutting off the opportunity for a homeowner to be able to do something to their lot that they want to? Could they even add a pool? Could they, are you making this so that it's going to be harder to even sell in the future because you're kind of limiting what they can do by reducing that lot size? So those are kind of my takes on it, and working with the neighbors in that way.
I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question based on something Colleen just said? Are these indeed green spaces, or are they retention?
They are designed primarily retention right now, but keep in mind, we don't have engineering done, right?
Okay.
So our engineers here listening, but we've got some preliminary back of napkin sizing on stormwater. So this is there's some fluff in everything that's happening here right now.
Thank you. I just need that clarity. Okay.
Could you provide some clarity? Is there an HOA lot separating on this? On the screen, is there an HOA lot between 5 and 21 and then the subdivision to the north that's separating? Because it looks like there's a difference in property lines.
There is.
Is there screening there now, or is it kind of open?
I think there's some screening, but it's primarily open. I want to say that's about a 30-foot outlot behind all of the homes in the reserve that was part of the plat for the reserve.
Gotcha. While it's not your property, there may be opportunities to have discussions with that HOA where maybe there's ways that you can help mitigate landscaping or enhance landscaping should you proceed. And then, as you go through, whether it's detention or retention, if it ends up being, dry basins or, with some wetness, I'd like to see it more naturalized rather than just open grass in those areas. I think it's more appealing and beneficial to the overall environment in the area for wildlife. So just food for thought on that. As far as site circulation and access goes, from my standpoint, The dead end is, without a plan, it does present some concerns. Whether you come back and you propose, if you choose to come back and, come back with a cul-de-sac, or if the city is amenable to a hammerhead, meaning you lose 2 lots right now, but you could build on them down the road if there's a phase 2 in the first, 10, 20 years later, that still gives some opportunities. But things just to consider, sprinklers do come with a cost, but I know, builders today that's a code requirement in some communities for all single families. So it's not something unheard of probably for MI. It just might be something different for St. Charles.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comments. One of the things that staff outlined in their review comments to us was that they would like to see a conversation about the comprehensive planning of the entire 85 acres. So we got that whatever it was, Wednesday, Thursday last week. So to be able to have that in response at a planning commission meeting, not necessarily realistic, but I think it's part of the larger context. I mean, I think I'm hearing that similar sentiment from everybody here. We've obviously had conversations with the owner of the property about what is for sale and what his intentions are with respect to the remainder of the property, but we haven't really had an opportunity to outline sort of if there's a phase 2, what could that phase 2 look like? Again, there is no proposal for a phase 2 because I don't want people to latch onto that, but I think we could do a better job of fleshing that out on a move forward basis for sure.
Okay. A few other little comments. If you proceed, architecturally wise, I do appreciate the variety of housing options. I'd like to see some anti-monotony included, meaning just anti-monotony meaning just paint colors. I don't want to see all gray, all blue. I want to see some variety of color tones and different masonry options, and make sure that we're not having the same thing next to each other and across the street. That does provide character. As far as screening and uniform design, I do think it is tasteful when developers do adopt some fencing standards and uniform of that, especially when abutting adjacent properties. So there's some uniform, so it's not vinyl fence, no fence, cedar fence. And that change, I think that does aesthetically help balance with neighboring properties. So that's something I'd be open to considering and looking at. And then as far as you talked about maximizing the lot standards, and you said that several of them, of the home designs, can fit on the lot, comply with the code as written. There's just a few of them, if someone chose every option, it starts to need that 30-foot setback. One thing I'd like to see is what lots that would affect and how many lots that is. Because ultimately, if it's, let's say it's only affecting 10 lots or just that 5 through 21, that's something that, maybe you just can't do those homes on those lots. Understanding, though, that you do have a lot of other larger lots where those would be the priority. So just some things to consider. Access, obviously, as you know, has to be worked out, but overall, I think it is a pretty high-quality home stock option compared to, some other plans that we've seen. I do think that there is a lot more character and architectural design to these homes, and I think that does tie in at least to the surrounding properties, whether it's the lot, the lot size is up for debate, but I think the homes themselves are not out of proportion or out of character with the area.
Yeah, I appreciate all that, and there's a lot of that detail is something that we would typically provide as part of a formal application for a preliminary approval. So things like fence specs, 100% we can do that. Things like the anti-monotony, we would voluntarily do that, so we can bring that in as part of the process. So we would be, we've got notes from this hearing, and assuming we do move forward with the formal application, we would be addressing all of those things, full package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those, I'm guessing, would be addressed too, if the PUDs apply for it. That they can require all of those, the monotony and...
Yeah, so it would all be if they proceed with a formal application and through that process.
Right,
yes.
right.
And we've even had, we've had situations where we had a spreadsheet that showed, here's the different square footages of each home, and, depending on options, where could they be built on each lot? So, there's a lot of stuff that we could do if we move forward. I think understanding that it's not going to look exactly like this when we move forward based on other comments, I think there's a bit of other work that we need to do in order to get to those points.
Yeah, and I'll save my comments for after, but I need to have one or two questions still, please, if you don't mind. Why the POD when the zoning question comes up? Why the POD? Just for the deviations? I mean, there's a lot of findings of fact that need to be checked off, but you're saying that the only reason is for the deviations.
Yeah, effectively, you know, I work in a lot of different communities, and every community's got different perspectives on PUDs, and some of them, you know, I'll be in a community next week that if it's greater than 5 acres, it must be a PUD. So hearing staff's feedback on what we submitted, I think we can absolutely have a conversation about whether the PUD is necessary.
Whether it's necessary.
So I mean, that's
still, okay.
Absolutely. That's the nice thing about this process, right, is we're able to flush out some of these details, so we appreciate that feedback.
Okay, and my second question is, I think you kind of hit on it, answering Jeff's questions, but your rationale for the smaller lot size, it's strictly trend and efficiency? I mean, there is no blend with the other neighborhoods, right? The lot sizes are half the size. So it's, so I'm looking to see your rationale. Is it?
Yes.
What's the latest? And
I think it's, you know, I answered a lot of that in response to the earlier question, but you know, I could go on. We could look at other spots in St. Charles. Like there's some really cool master plan communities in St. Charles where they have different pods of development, and you've got a pod of 10,000 square foot lots, which are next to a pod of 7,000 square foot lots, which are next to a pod of townhomes. And like when we're doing large comprehensive development, we do that all of the time. Yeah. So we know that it's possible to put one size lot next to another size lot. And I think, you know, some of the questions or some of the comments I've heard from plan commissioners is that's not necessarily, you know, there's probably some smaller size lot that could work here, but we need to do a better job of maybe figuring out the transition. You know, I would just say by way of example, that east property line, you don't see it because of how we've got it driven or how we've got it drawn, but all of the lots along the west property line are 195 feet.
Right. They're not in the city. Right.
Well, no. I'm saying our lots. So if you look at where we've got lot 39 through lot 45, all of those lots are scheduled to be 195 feet deep. So they're 50 feet deeper, 70 feet deeper than the rest of the lots in the subdivision. Now, that was meant to be an outreach to the unincorporated subdivision that was next door to have a little bit larger lot next to those county lots. So I think there's some things that we could do. You know, as Commissioner Ewald said, there's a 30-foot buffer in the reserve. There's some things that we could do to better transition, and if we can transition appropriately, I think we've seen in St. Charles and a lot of other communities that you can have different pods of different size lots.
And a lot of those places you're talking about were all built at the same time. So that's a different thing. You know, the people who bought this lot knew that was going to be bigger or smaller, whereas this is something that, you know, wasn't necessarily on the radar of the neighboring communities.
Agreed, but I think it's, you know, when we start thinking about impact, I think it really becomes a question not of what was the original expectation of that lot buyer, but what is the impact to their home, and is there an impact in terms of pricing? And I think we could show that there's certainly not an impact in pricing. I mean, one of the things I talked to some residents about last week was, okay, let's think about the pricing between the reserves and the unincorporated subdivision next door. Because the unincorporated subdivision next door is 2 times the lot size. So, you know, it's sort of a similar application. It's 2 times the lot size in an unincorporated subdivision, which is immediately adjacent to the reserve. We're half the size of the reserve lots. It's a very similar application, but the lots in the reserve sell for more than the homes in the unincorporated. So I think we can see a direct application next to us that lot size does not necessarily equal home value. Now, the homes in the reserve are certainly newer, and that's a component of it. But I think if we brought an expert in to talk about home values, I think you'd see very little value. And
I agree with you. I'm just thinking along the northern edge, you know, lot size, home value, but they weren't planning on watching their neighbor's TV. You know what I mean? So they're pretty close. So I think to Colleen's point that perhaps, you know, the buffering is pretty important. Not so much the lot size, but, you know, what they bargained for. Okay,
Understood.
thank you.
Thank you.
had some general comments that I think echo a lot of this, so if nothing else, it's emphasizing some of the importance of some of these topics. I think that there's a big road for you with respect to solving the fire department. Do they really, really want a second access point? And certainly something like putting sprinkler systems in addresses one level of emergency, but there's also health-related emergencies that can be, layered on top of another type of emergency. And so I think that understanding how hard line the fire department will be on wanting a second access is super important to how your plan develops further in the next go-round. And that maybe, the property to the south, while there's no way to currently address hey, we want to plan something, master plan something, all the way down to Redgate Road. Something that could be considered would be an all-access driveway where lots 60 and 61 stub and have that go all the way to Redgate Road to provide that secondary access. It still could be gated so that it doesn't become some other, roadway that people start using. But that could be, I think, considered. Obviously, talked about, the need for the ability to turn around, temporary easements on lots 60 and 61 in this plan, I think are always challenging, just from an appearance and an overall thing. But I think those are definitely things that you would need to deal with. Understanding the city is investigating the need and the feasibility of their well, and that might, if they decide that they really want the well, that might cause a land swap with you guys, which still need, would then affect the plan differently. So I think, there's some things there. And as far as value of the land, you can work that out with staff. I wouldn't worry personally about that. I think that there's a continued conversation that people have perceptions of, hey, I always like something that looks the same when I look across the backyard, right? And you have this interface, at least for our residents, on the north and the east. And I think that we talked about adding a buffer yard. I realize that somehow takes up land, and this is a finite piece of land. There isn't the ability to just tack on pieces to make things work. That can potentially impact yield. And I'm not suggesting that you have to give up yield. I think there just might be a better way to work through all that. And then as you tighten up things like stormwater management, that might potentially shrink your stormwater management, which gives you land that you can use for other things. And between your engineer and your planner, you work through those topics. I do think a dedicated lot, similar to what is in the properties to the north and east, for a buffer yard, helps to address people's consternation over things like, hey, those are smaller lots than mine. Values aside, because you can bring in all the experts you want, but you're still going to have a perception, good or bad, that it's different. And a lot of times that emotional thing doesn't change. And I'm sure you've seen it, heard it any number of times from any number of places. Numbers are great, but then you still have to get past people's acceptance. But I do think that would be helpful. I would echo Zach's comment about if the existing buffer yards or parcels to the north and east are not heavily planted, I think it's my comment to you, I don't have the numbers, is I think that's a modest and reasonable gesture to plant into their buffer yards with their approval and sign off, of course, to increase the density of the planting, so that you're using more land, or using, let's say, a 20-foot buffer yard on your lot, and if they have a 20 or 30-foot buffer yard on their parcel, that combined, it becomes a more developed area. Something that hasn't been talked about, but I think is important, and you guys have already taken the first step. I always go look at every property that our group sees. I walk to or go on every property because I think it's important to understand the property from the inside or on it versus just looking at it through aerials. You guys have already tagged all the trees. You've already sent somebody out there. I don't know if it was Gary Weber's office or another arborist or somebody, and you've already done that from an inventory standpoint. I don't know if you've surveyed them all, from a geopositioning, but I know they've all been tagged. I think there's a lot of very high quality trees on the property, especially when you look at the aerial, say roughly western half of the property, kind of where the notch is right now along the southern property line. If you take those lines and extend them north and then everything to the west, there's a good mix of a lot of mature trees of species like white oak, red oak, walnut, linden, elm, which are all very nice quality Illinois trees. And I don't see the plan effectively making an effort to preserve zero. And I think that while there's no project, a rare project, that can save all the trees, but I think identifying the best of those trees and the ones that are in the best of health, because development will impact their health as the project builds out. You're changing hydrology, you're adding utilities, you're doing lots of things that these trees have never experienced before, and that affects them. And so I think that integrating to those levels, the buffer yards along the north start to incorporate some of these hedgerow trees along the north. And so it isn't that the planting along there would have to be bermed. It could be, hey, we're going to preserve these best trees and then do some interplanting to help layer and create those separations. So I think there's a lot that can be done to start to pick up on some of the issue sensitivities that I'm sure have been expressed in your earlier meeting. I'm sure we'll hear more of it tonight, which is fair. But I think that there's some definitely things that could be done with that in tree preservation. I think that if you end up with cul-de-sac islands, like near Lot 5 and near Lot 83, 80, I think those should be planted islands, planted cul-de-sacs, and not paved cul-de-sacs. Otherwise, it's about 80 to 90 feet of pavement. I don't know, $750,000, $800,000 with a big pavement in front doesn't sound very exciting to me. So just a few thoughts. And I think that I would agree that detention areas, probably are more cost effective in the world of mass grading rather than retention areas. A lot of it depends, I'm sure, on the soil borings, and are you, meeting compaction requirements, and are you meeting the way the foundations need to sit. But I think detention will have a much better view and a much better aesthetic than retention ponds. I think you see that across the Chicago metro area in suburban areas where there's enough land to build open detention ponds. You see pretty much all of them today. The only reason they don't is they have to do a clay borrow or something like that to help them balance the site or something. Otherwise, everything is detention, not retention. And unless you dig them deep enough, they become detention anyway, instead of retention.
I just asked, are we offering our opinions now, or are we going to hear public and then offering our opinions? Oh, okay. So I have a bunch. I just got through my questions. I didn't get through my opinions. Okay.
Process-wise, I think we're kind of wrapped up for now, and I appreciate you taking the time to, if you will, answer all of our questions and entertain us for a moment with some feedback. And for us to think more, we will take comments from the public now, and then at the end, the Planning Commission can provide a final feedback, and that'll be the end for tonight for this round.
Sounds great. I appreciate all the thoughtful comments from everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so if you would like to speak, just please, one at a time, we'll come up to the lectern. Please provide your name and address, and we'll hear any comments that you have. We're here to listen. Thank you.
I apologize, I broke my ankle, so standing's not really an option. My name is Lori Ann Friedrich. I'm at 6N475 West Ridgewood in Redgate Ridge. Actually, can you please bring that site plan back up? I actually have quite a few concerns in regards to this proposed development. The very first being is our school system. D303 just went through a boundary redraw less than 2 years ago. Wild Rose, which this school will feed into for elementary, is at 98% capacity and will remain that way all the way out through 2028, according to the district's website. North High School is also at capacity, 98%. The only school that has any room right now is Redling. And even then, by 2028, that will be over capacity. We're going to have to go through a brand new boundary for the school district in order to offset all of our students again. How much money did we just waste then? If this is going to happen and continue to happen. The next, which is also a very large concern, which was addressed, is the one entrance and exit to the subdivision. God forbid there is a natural gas leak and everyone has to get out. You don't have to worry about a fire. I mean, a natural gas leak will cause just as much panic and or issue. The other is, yes, the lot size and density. Why can't they redraw this with half-acre lots? Who wants to spend $800,000 for a 0.2-acre lot? I might as well go buy a postage stamp. Basically, all MI Homes wants to do is shove as many homes as they can on as much land as they can to make as much profit as they can. It's end of story. That's all this is. The fourth and final issue that I have is one for Redgate Ridge to the west. We are on a drain tile system. We are not on sewers. We have no real stormwater disbursement. When the reserve was put in behind us, they put all the city and or the reserve, the developer, put all storm drains behind our properties between East Ridgewood Drive as well as the reserve, so that we did not have to worry about stormwater issues. The way this map is, there are two ponds that take the inundation of the stormwater through, if you look at the Kane County GIS interactive map, right where the subdivision is going to go. If that water has nowhere to go, it's going to go into our yards. That's a problem. We do not have drain tiles, so our last drain tile ends right about here on the map. There's no drain tiles behind the homes in the cul-de-sac. There we go. There's no drain tiles behind the homes in this cul-de-sac. Is MI Homes or the city going to put in stormwater retention so that our homes don't get damaged? So those are my biggest concerns right now, and I think you're going to find a lot of the residents have the exact same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Carey Dujanovic. I live at 5N699 East Ridgewood Drive. I'm in Redgate subdivision, and just wanted to pick up on the last comment around the District 303. Most of us bought our homes because we're so close to St. Charles North. Last year, the school district had a proposed 2A map that our three subdivisions be redistricted to east. That will significantly impact our property value, but not only that, our kids' lifestyles. They walk to school. So with having the additional homes, that puts the pressures back at looking at redistricting again, which will probably come up with our subdivisions once more. The other thing is I have a unique perspective because my home is on Redgate in Ridgewood. I will tell you, I moved there in 2021. I'm a resident, longtime resident of St. Charles. Moved away to Glen Ellen, had a post-stamp lot, decided I wanted more land for my family, and came back to St. Charles again, like large lots that we had before. But on my property, I've had 5 accidents. 2 have been recorded with the Kane County Police. 2 of those have been with students that have been forced off the road. When I first moved in 2021, there was an accident right at Tradition and Redgate that was of another student. I've had 3 cars that have hit signage, been in my front yard, and taken off. This development, especially if you get an access point to Redgate, is going to put extra demand on a country road. And that's what it is. It's a country road at that point. We've had 5 accidents in 4 years. And I'm not even talking about the intersection of Randall and Redgate, which we know even after they've changed the traffic signal, there's still been a student's death there. I've actually took video of my area, which I know you probably can't see. I'm happy to give you my phone if you want to pass it around. Otherwise, I can email you this video.
I would email it to staff.
Okay, I will do that. So the traffic from St. Charles North arriving at 6:45 backs up all the way to my home. So you have an access point to Redgate from Redgate Farm for the subdivision. Could you imagine what that's going to look like? I've already drove my daughter to school where I see people crossing over the double lane, charging at high speeds to get around all the traffic and coming into oncoming traffic to bypass all the school traffic that's heading east. I know you're going to have to do a study, or they're going to have to do a study.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, not all of it is going to be documented. I'm telling you about a resident that lives there and sees it all the time. So that is my concern, is safety. One of the students that landed in our yard just 2 weeks ago, which is documented with a police report, is a tennis player like my daughter is a tennis player. They are scared to death to walk across the street to Meadowview Street. They say, I'm scared I'm going to get hit by a car. That's what that student said who landed in my yard, and my daughter says all the time. The traffic pattern is not conducive for that road. So thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you.
If you would like a first-hand account from a high schooler who drives that road every morning, she's out in my car. And she'll tell you what a nightmare it is.
Thank you.
Hi there, Chris Laraquenta. I'm at 1025 Reserve Drive. We back up to the north side of the plan. Before commenting on any of that piece, I'd like to think that the job of the commission, of the planning commission for the city of St. Charles, is to do things for the greater good of the community. And when we think about that, we think about St. Charles, we think about Geneva, we think about Wayne. And when people find out, where do you live? Oh, I live in St. Charles, right? It comes with a certain prestige. That prestige comes or is formed by not only our community, but obviously the homes. When we're talking about the aesthetic, and Mr. Whitaker mentioned a lot of developers when he was talking about different developments. All of those that he mentioned are tract builders. Everybody you see in River's Edge, the reserve was semi-custom. All of those builders were custom or semi-custom. Anything in those surrounding communities are also, they were custom back in the day, right? Some of those homes are back from as early as the 70s that are there. But, you know, when we're talking about the math, and Mr. Whitaker mentioned 1984, you know, they were 2-acre lots, correct? Something along those lines, whatever he mentioned, and then it cuts down and became half. So I guess 15 years from now, we'll have a development of tiny homes, then just right outside on the other side of the farm. It's obvious that the builder's intention is to have a phase 2. They won't admit to that. They won't state that right now because the farmer doesn't know what he wants to do with his land yet. I don't know how old Mr. Cook is, but, you know, when his time comes and his children take over the land or whoever, you know, what are they going to want to do with it? They're going to want to pass that on. But you have a certain aesthetic. If you look in half a mile to a mile in the perimeter of St. Charles North High School, you have homes that are semi-custom, custom with large lots, and we'd like to maintain that. Now, just to speak to a little bit of the math part of things, when we're talking about safety, sorry, can we get that slide back up? Yeah. But when we're talking about the entrance onto Rosebud, this diagram really doesn't give you the realistic view of what Rosebud Drive is like. That is a blind turn as it is right now. And north of us is Foley Drive, which connects with Silver Glen. Silver Glen. So you have a lot of the high school kids in the morning that think it's a raceway. They come down. They have to make a turn onto Reserve Drive, make a right turn onto Rosebud, meander through the neighborhood in order to get to the high school. They do that to beat the traffic on Silver Glen. They do that to beat the traffic on Redgate. They do that because they left late for school and they're in a hurry. Well, when 220 breaks out and they're on their way out, it's the same thing in reverse. We're talking about 83 more homes. If we think about a 3-car garage, which, by the way, I'll quickly mention that there are no ranches in their development. When I brought that up to a representative at the residents meeting the other day, he says, oh, yeah, there's no market for ranches. 80.5 million people will be over the age of 65 by 2040. Easy Google search. Nonetheless, if we take 83 homes with a 3-car garage, just 1 car a day, the average American, the average resident takes 3 trips a day. Going to school, going to work, going to Target. I go to Target twice a day sometimes. But nonetheless, when you factor in round trip, that's 6 trips a day in and out of the neighborhood. 3 trips in and out, but 6 total trips. Times 83 homes, you're talking about almost 500 trips per day. The safety threat that stands upon us with the 2 neighborhoods because of 83 homes possibly being built, regardless of all the other factors, lot size, easement, so on and so forth, which we're all in agreement on anyway, that safety piece really puts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 different neighborhoods at risk. And that's really something that when we talk about developing the community and maintaining a community, we really need to think about the safety. So that's not even factoring, you know, the history of what those accidents have already presented. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Terry Witter. I live at 1125 Reserve Drive in the Reserve of St. Charles. Just to add a couple of pieces of information, when we moved into our home in 2017 in the Reserve of St. Charles, the streets in front of our home were construction grade. We were told that the streets could not be finished until 95% of the homes under construction were done. My concern is that now we're talking about a new development, and construction traffic, cement trucks, home haulers, whatever, traveling residential, traffic controlled intersections for the next, 2 or 3 years, possibly, on streets that are finished. And as I said, we were told that the streets couldn't be finished because of the construction. So I'm not sure how that would be affected. Speaking of traffic, my husband and I did our own kind of traffic study. We have a video camera on our front that covers the street in front of our house. We are the lot directly north of lot 20 in the new proposed subdivision. So we're in the kind of the back of the reserve, but all the cars that come past our house are either going towards 31, towards Rosebud, or coming from Rosebud or 31 past our house. In 2 non-consecutive 24-hour periods, I counted in excess of 150 vehicles that drove past our house. We're in the back end of Reserve Drive. I can't imagine what the number would be at the intersection of Rosebud and Reserve. The other point I'd like to make is the one that Chris alluded to. You've got 83 homes with 3-car garages. The potential is for, if you have 2 cars and those 2 cars make 3 round trips into and out of the subdivision a day, you're talking about 498 vehicles traveling on Rosebud, either north to Reserve Drive or south to Meadowview to Redgate Road. So I would think that was a large number of cars to add to the already constricted traffic. All the intersections that we're referring to also are non-traffic control intersections. There are no signs, there's no yield, there's no stop. And as the lady said, we've had several instances of close calls or accidents in the area already. And the one comment about the kids coming from Silver Glen Road, they come barreling through Foley to Reserve Drive and down Reserve Drive to Rosebud, and then Rosebud to Meadowview to get to the high school or to bypass Route 31. So there's a big traffic backup there. The other point I would like to address is that in their summary of development document, the builder states that the Classic Series homes complement the existing design aesthetic of St. Charles and fit in with surrounding residential land uses. I don't think that's really correct. Redgate Ridge homes have an average lot size of 1 acre. Reserve of St. Charles has an average lot size of 1/3 of an acre. River's Edge has an average lot size of about 1/2 an acre. Their proposed lot size would be 0.21 acres or 0.26 acres. That's a great big difference as far as, I can see. So those are the comments that I would have. And speaking of the access road to the Reserve of St. Charles, I was on the board of the HOA for the Reserve of St. Charles for several years. That access parcel is owned by the HOA.
Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Jeff Wojnar. I'm a homeowner at the corner of Rosebud and Meadowview, so it's 632 North Meadowview Drive. So I am actually just, I would say, east, a little bit southeast of this new development. A lot of the residents have already voiced their concern about safety. I want to definitely drive that a little bit further through. As most of you probably seen me, I'm the guy that runs through your neighborhood almost daily. But anyhow, I've seen just in the gutters on the main streets, and again, if this present proposal goes forward with only one access point in and out, you have 2 points of where this traffic is going to be coming from. Construction traffic originally, right? Initially, right? We already touched on that. That's going to be coming from Redgate up, probably Meadowview to Rosebud, and then also from 31 most likely, right? Across Reserve Drive, down Rosebud, and into the one access point. That's problematic. I've seen baseballs, I've seen tennis balls in the gutters, I've seen golf balls. That tells me the kids are outside. Oh, and they're off devices. Amazing, isn't it? But that's a safety concern, because these kids, I see them running across the street. Lo and behold, and God willing that nothing happens, but with the increased flow of traffic from construction traffic and then eventually the residents, that is a legitimate safety concern, and we really want to look at that closer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm Kate Grimaldi. I live at 4130 River Ridge Drive. At the end of my driveway, you can see into North High School's football field. So we get to hear all of what's going on over there. I want to echo what everyone said about the traffic. My biggest concern is about the schools. We had a couple people talk about that. I'm a parent of a Wild Rose Elementary schooler. She's 9 years old. Wild Rose is an old school. It's been around a long time. It's a wonderful school. It has no room for more capacity. We are at capacity. We just did boundary redistricts 2 years ago. And yes, there was a concern about the high school. There was also a concern about middle school and elementary. Wild Rose is one of only 2 total elementary schools that were affected. We have no continuity. So our half school will separate into middle school, and it will separate again into high school. Adding all of these new homes will cause different change into boundaries all over again, and will cause a whole nother, what I call this, a very large snafu a couple of years ago around that. Additionally, and Kurt talked about this earlier, but like there is so much happening in our neighborhood right now. The kids are out playing, they're riding their bikes. They have the ability to be out there walking, riding bikes, skateboarding to each other's houses and neighborhoods. That won't happen anymore. The traffic will cause those kids. I will not let my daughter, even now, walk across the street after school alone because of the traffic already. People zoom down my street to get to North High School. Football games, people are parked all the way up to my house and around my driveway. The kids leave their garbage in my front yard, and I don't mind. I move there on purpose. I go and I clean it up. I say congratulations. We go to the football games. But the traffic stopping our kids from being able to play outside, it's not okay. And it's going to cause that. It's going to make it even harder. I think the biggest thing is just we moved here to be able to spend time with our families outside in the green space, to be safe. My daughter learned how to ride a bike. She loves riding to her friends' houses. She loves riding to her friend's house over on Meadowview. I'm not going to be able to let her do that anymore if we only have one access point. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Coughlin, 4440 Rosebud, which is diagonally across from that road that they're proposing. And the first thing I'd say is that the submitter here is arguing that what the seller is trying to do is seek to transfer all the inconvenience to those of us homeowners on Rosebud Drive and surrounding areas. The property he's selling is going to be a great profit to him. The neighboring homeowners, though, are going to have to bear the inconvenience that's going to be, for a long time, I'm sure, of increased traffic, noise, temporary stopgaps while they figure out how to get something done that they didn't plan on, adverse property value, and so forth. The other thing is, and I don't think the attorney mentioned this, but there's no duration for this project. Is this a 2-year project? Is this a 4-year project? And so I started scratching my head. I said, I wonder how I can find out, when the next downturn is, because that affects things. And I think people that are longer-term residents of the reserve will tell you that thing's stretched out for longer than they wanted. And those are the types of inconveniences. But so I looked and I said, when's the next downturn due? Well, an economic downturn since World War II, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, is every 6.2 years. We're probably overdue. So, I mean, that may stretch out the duration of this project forever. I have a ton of other comments. It kept me up at night thinking of all the problems with this. But the homes that are on the north end, and I'm on the east side, but I get the sunrise in the morning, and it changes with the season. But all those homes I'm thinking about on the north side, their elevation is, from what somebody just told me, is about 12 feet lower than the new homes. The new homes are tall. I don't know how tall they are, but they're two-story and they're very peaked. They're going to cast a shadow probably on all these homes. I'll bet you nobody thought of that. It's just one of these things that, you know, the law of unintended consequences, right? You know, the intentions of the property owner, Mr. Cook, seem unclear, but if I were to guess, he's got more to sell, and he's going to do that. But he's leaving that on the backs of us, you know, other people that are going to be affected by this road. And oh, by the way, Rosebud Drive, and all the others are undersized. If you've got somebody that's parking on the street, and I have this all the time when I'm coming in from Redgate myself, if somebody's parking on the street, you have to stop if there's some car approaching you, because you can't all three pass at the same time. It's just not safe. And you worry about, like a lot of parents are saying, with children and so forth, it is a speedway there. It's definitely a speedway. So there's lots of problems there. I worry about things such as the idea of, you know, restricting traffic. We can't do that like they used to do with Foley when there was still construction. They wouldn't allow construction traffic to come in from the road to the north, and I'm forgetting what that was. But, you know, we won't enjoy that ability. We'll just have all that construction traffic coming onto Little Rosebud Drive, which is, and I hope you take the time, if you haven't, to go there and see how meandering it is and how narrow it is and how inconvenient that would be if you are parking. If I'm to have company, they shouldn't park on the street. It could be a real problem. So, I mean, these are just a number of problems that I've come up with. There's probably more, and I just think it's a bad idea and shouldn't be done.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Julie Garthwaite. I'm at 965 Reserve, and if you look at the map there, my house backs up to 14, 13, and 12. And I don't really consider my lot very big as it is, so to have three big houses 30 feet from my pool is, I can't even imagine. Thank you for bringing up the tree line there, though. Currently, from 21 all the way down at least to 10, maybe 9, there are huge existing trees. And right now they look a little barren, but in the spring and summer, you can't see the farmyard at all. It totally blocks it out. And last week I was asked about it, and they said, well, we think those are on our property, so those will go. We might plant some little things, but it's already a 30-foot, there's nowhere to plant anything. So I realize that at some point this land is probably going to sell, it is probably going to have some homes on it, but if we could just consider the lot sizes and the landscaping and things like that, in addition to the safety, the aesthetics and everything like that, those of us right along the line would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Art Lemke. I live in Charlemagne subdivision, which is really on the east side of St. Charles. And we've looked at developments proposed around the city, and the fairest way to assess this traffic situation is to have an independent traffic report. They typically look at three things. What's the existing traffic? What traffic would be added? And the impact on what otherwise is not meant to be a through street. And third is additional development, what impact that has. And that's typically part of a requirement to develop a parcel like this or anything in my neighborhood. That's all.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for being here and giving us a chance to talk. We all appreciate it. My name is Lance Luca, 4241 Meadowview Drive. That lot 83 and pretty much everything to the right of it right there, that's me. So I built that house 20 years ago for a pretty large lot premium with the hope that I would never have anybody behind me. And I had 5 acres behind me for a long time. 20 years I've been there now. And while I understand the business aspect, and I'm sure this is not a fun night for you, I'm certainly not looking forward to looking at 600 cars a day, construction going on for 6 years. I won't go through all the things that everybody's talked about. You've all been bringing up some great points. I'm an animal lover. I wonder what happens with all the animals living in there, coyotes and everything else, and what's going to happen when all those guys get ripped out of there. I also was curious when I had asked at the homeowners meeting what would happen with all those trees, which, again, some of those I planted that weren't even on my side because I wanted that to look nicer. And I was told I'm not really sure. We don't have a plan for that, if they're going to stay or not. Obviously, it would behoove them to probably keep them, but that's another thing that concerns me. I would also say that I am a printer by trade, and somehow somebody in the neighborhood's got wind of that, and I've gotten a request for 162 yard signs in 2 days to stop the build. So, not trying to cause problems again, but I'm going to turn my phone off tomorrow because I don't want any more yard signs. But, and I will just say, though, and that there has been some discussions. I don't know what this would do to anything or not, but at least in the River's Edge side where we're from, there's talk of potentially putting up gates. I don't know if that would do anything or not, but wanted to bring that up to everybody's attention. But thank you very much for the time, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Talek, live at 775 Reserve Drive. I'm kind of right behind the lot 5 there. I agree with everything that's been said before, so I'm not going to go through everything. I did send in email to the community development. But what I wanted to point out, and I think somebody did bring it up a little bit here, there is the HOA property, but it's a hill. And so our property sits at the bottom of this small hill, berm. And when I talked to the developer last week, found out some basic elevations that might be the other side, they're going to be quite a bit higher. So yes, those houses we're going to see, they're not going to be 2-story, they're going to be close to 3 or more. And the other thing is with the property line being so close, even if you do another landscape buffer that you talked about possibly putting there, we're still going to be seeing anything in the yard. And when the property's so small, and will they have an HOA? I don't know. Right now, ours doesn't allow trampolines, doesn't allow above-ground pools or, tool sheds in the yard. So am I going to be looking up at all these items that aren't allowed in my area? Just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for, allowing us the time to talk. And again, I've been agreeing with all the other...
If you could just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Barb Brask, and I live at 4440 Rosebud, so I'm adjacent. I just wanted to bring up the point about some of the properties that are outside of Reserve, and all the unincorporated areas. I used to live in an unincorporated area, and our lot size had to be a certain size because we were on well and septic. And I think to your point, saying that those have decreased, and they have decreased because we're in the city and we're on city water and well. So I think that that contributes to the lot size getting smaller because you're allowed to do that being on the water system and the well system versus the septic and wells. So, okay, that's all I wanted to bring up.
Thank you.
Hi, Cheryl Talek again. Just wanted to point out, because I heard about water, and no one's really said it tonight, but I mean all the utilities that they would need to connect into. We've heard that the water is the biggest issue. You know, some of the city wells are getting low, and they're looking for locations to put new wells in. The water pressure in the reserve for some people that are on the far north end is apparently pretty bad. So adding all this in and trying to tie into a system that even the reserve, it's not supported with the reserve of St. Charles is problematic.
Thank you.
Hi, Sue Winters. I live at 5N999 East Ridgewood. I'm in Redgate. I'm one of the homes that back up on the west side. I attended a meeting last week, and I asked about that green space that's on the west side. As you had noted, there's a lot of beautiful mature trees there, and I asked about those, and they said, well, you know, that they couldn't really guarantee anything. It kind of depended on if it was going to be homeowners part of it or the HOA. Tonight, I hear that those would be allotted to the larger homes with the smaller easement, so I'm assuming that would push back into that green space. So I just, as a concerned resident there, if we're trying to maintain some of that green space, and I really would ask that you would consider that, that we would look at that as maybe not putting those largest homes right up and taking away all those beautiful trees for us.
Thank you.
Hi, Terry Ware again. I just wanted to speak to the one point about the water issue. The Reserve St. Charles homeowners were told when they built their homes that they had to install booster pumps because the water pressure was not adequate without them. So I'm wondering what kind of impact this development would have on the water pressure and the water supply in our area if we were told that we had to have booster pumps installed and you're adding 83 more homes. Are there going to be booster pumps? What kind of impact is that going to be with regard to the water pressure and the water supply in the area?
Thank you. Sorry.
My name is Rick Lovey, and I live in River's Edge. I don't need to talk about all the things that we've talked about, traffic and all that. What about a light at Reserve and 31? And can Redgate handle more traffic with the size that it is? And also, who pays for all the infrastructure? Is there enough tax dollars without increase of taxes that will cover all the infrastructure for this new subdivision?
Thank you.
My name's Steve Soga, live at 4451 Rosebud Drive. The house right behind lot number 5. And just like everybody else mentioned, excuse me, I work from my house. I sit there, I look out, my home office is on the 2nd floor. I see traffic coming all day long back and forth. There's approximately 400 to 500 cars. High school kids every morning coming down. I walk my dog down that street. Can't tell you how many kids speed, parents speed 40, 50 miles an hour. To have 83 homes go into that lot, into that subdivision there, that concept plan, and have all those cars and traffic up and down Rosebud, it can't handle it. I see it on a daily basis, 17 years in that home. Excuse me. The other thing I'm going to point out, if you look at M&I Homes and do a Google review and look at the ratings, I'm going to read just the first paragraph. I'll let everybody on the committee do it themselves and look at the research. M&I Homes has a mixed to negative reputation among customers with many complaints citing poor construction, quality, extensive defects, and unhelpful post-sale customer service and warranty departments. The company, which is a large production builder, is generally considered middle of the road in quality compared to the other scale builders. Numerous mentions the use of cheap materials, significant construction flaws, including foundation leak, mold, cracked ceilings and driveways, improper insulation, drafty windows, and unfinished painting or trim work. A lot more to read. I hope you take the time and read about it. I'm concerned about the homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to provide any comments tonight from the public before we close this part of our meeting tonight? Okay. So I think what we'll do is close the public comment part of the meeting from our audience. And we appreciate all of your comments. We appreciate that you come out and want to share with us and some of our elected officials, and they'll all get the full meeting minutes by our fine people over here. So all of that will be documented and shared. Of course, all of our staff reports are very thorough, and some of these concerns that you have raised have already been brought up and commented on from our staff. And so these become, if you will, layers and echoes of some of the same things. Can't imagine this project, if it went forward, without a complete traffic study. I think hearing some of your concerns, comments, and experiences, the staff can provide those to their reviewer. What happens is the applicant would provide a traffic study, and then the city has an outside consultant that reviews that study. So that's how the process would go as far as a traffic study. But there are certain things we could share with those, with the applicant, of things that we'd like for them to take into account and look at. I would say depending on how a traffic study turns out and what it all says that is necessary, or what, we all come to an agreement on between the applicant and the city's traffic consultant, kind of weighs out how, if in fact there's any improvements that need to happen to local streets or Redgate itself. Usually something like a traffic signal is a much more complicated thing to get. It has to do with warrants and all these other types of traffic study types of things that the engineers work through. But there's a lot of formulaic kinds of things that have to be met before you can just introduce a traffic signal onto a road. So it isn't as simple as, well, we think it's a good idea, and so we should do it. There is a lot that goes into that, but certainly something that could be looked at. And I think, with respect to stormwater management and where does water go and not go, and how does that work, usually we saw this a lot on a project on the east side near the Charlestown Mall, where there was a lot of stormwater issues related to a potential apartment project that was going on to an existing agricultural field. Generally speaking, water from an agricultural field is called unreleased or undetained stormwater. And on a project like this, just like on the east side, stormwater is not allowed to just be unreleased. The King County ordinance, what the city has adopted, needs to be followed. And so in many cases, surface flow off of these agricultural fields is now controlled into detention ponds. There's still 100-year events. There's still, other things that happen. But in general, surface flow and water coming off of these types of properties is improved, not creating more problems in general. But I would, allow the engineer to do their work from the applicant, of which then our engineering department reviews that to make sure it's in compliance with all aspects of the King County ordinance which the city uses. And so with that, I would offer an opportunity for any of our plan commissioners to ask any final questions and or provide comments to the applicant. And then I think after that will be it for this topic for tonight. I would just remind everybody that this will be in front of the Planning and Development Committee on December 8th at 7 p.m. And so you certainly can write letters, attend that meeting based on your own availability and schedule. And if they do come back, there would be another public hearing as far as a preliminary review and approval. So we would have more of this opportunity, seeing how much the plan has changed, whether you like it or still don't like it, and all of that would be taken into account at another level. So this is, if they decide to come forward, there would be another opportunity for your input and review.
Just thank you. I think you did, everybody, including our visitors, for fleshing out the process. That this is very, very preliminary, and I appreciate you restating that. So much so that there's so much that needs to be answered with this that we have right now, and considering the well placement and the study for the well, that was just, they were just notified of that. Access roads are clearly an issue, and staff had put in their comments whether we should opine on if a PUD is needed or necessary. And I'm not sure that as it is right now that the applicant has justified the need for a PUD except for the 2 deviations that they want. And I think we have to have more reasoning than that for a PUD.
Ellen, I have a question for you. Regards to water pressure, the city would require some level of flow analysis study that would be reviewed by Public Works before anything would be allowed to develop, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Based on a preliminary engineering submittal that would come if the developer were to choose to pursue this project, they would submit preliminary engineering plans that would then be looked at by our Public Works Department, and there would be a water modeling study done by the city's water modeling consultant, and that would identify whether there will be adequate pressure or if upsizing or other improvements would be needed based on the proposal. So yes, that would come at the next phase.
Thank you. And then just another comment, it seems like there was an overwhelming topic of traffic enforcement. While some of it is related to unincorporated properties, some is related to city properties, I think it would be in the interest if staff could convey these concerns to the new police chief and see if there could be some increased enforcement in that area, because it would help, I think, during the school times, just to assist these residents. And then I do have a question for the applicant. There was some questions regarding whether this would be an HOA subdivision. Is that something that MI Homes does?
Always.
And are there general restrictions on accessory structures or what can go in yards, such as like trampolines, or can they have above ground pools and things like that these neighboring residents may not be allowed to do in their HOAs?
Yeah, I think my guess is our restrictions would be very similar to what they have in Reserve. I mean, the Reserve was actually built by couples that came out of Pulte, so I kind of have some expectations of what that format probably looks like. I don't think there would be anything materially different that we would do in terms of restricting our lots comparatively. as part of a formal process, I'd be happy to take a look, pull down their declaration, and make a cross compare to see what we've written for other subdivisions like this.
I think that would assist, if you do proceed, as some of the neighbors did state that, they may not want to look at a shed, a large shed or above-ground pool right up, at those higher elevations. So that would be maybe a good neighbor kind of a thing. As far as, that buffer area, and I was just thinking about it, on the northern property line, if the homes are, let's say, I don't know the setback of the reserve properties, they can be 30, they can be 40 feet. You have that additional 30-foot buffer, and then if you are requesting a 30-foot minimum, let's say, you're still talking at the minimum, if it's 30, 30, 30, that's 90 feet separation between the buildings. I just want to be clear. While it is at an elevation, that is a pretty significant distance, whereas, where if you go traditionally further into town, it could be as close as 40 feet, on average. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing together a proposal. One question which I'm trying to find, there are sidewalks in here, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Standard. I think it's great. St. Charles is a desirable place, so I understand the desire to want to come and build here. I'm not going to reiterate everything that you've heard. I think that you've been given a lot to think about, some big concerns. So I hope that you'll just take a lot of what we've heard tonight, both from the commissioners and the staff comments and the audience and your neighbors, and kind of rethink a way that this can make a bit more sense, not just for the neighbors, but also for some of the safety concerns, both from the access road and the turnabout, and just, I think there's just a lot. And the trees, the boundaries, everything. So I know that this is a beginning process, and so I think the audience now understands that this is just the beginning. But I appreciate that you're listening, you're taking it in, you're hearing everyone's concerns. And having meetings with the neighbors, I think, goes a long way. And I would encourage you to keep doing that as much as you can, because I think there has to be that give and take and that input. And I think that people need to be heard, and if they see changes that implement some of their concerns, I think that goes a long way as well. So if you do decide to come back, I look forward to seeing what you put together based on everyone's feedback.
Thank you. I have one more item just to, should you come forward, I would ask that you do engage in conversations with the school district and have those. I know there is land cash, meaning the school district can elect for land and or cash, as well as the park district. But if you could, engage in some conversations with the park district and the school district, if you were to come back, that way that there's understanding that, either they have capacity or where these children would be going to schools and things like that. I know you can get estimates based on how many homes, the average number of kids you can assume. So that's something I'd be asking.
Ellen, I can remember from the staff report, there were initial thoughts from both boards, both the school board and the park board.
So we sent the concept plan to both the school district and the park district. The park district did respond and stated that they would accept a cash dedication for this project as opposed to a land dedication. We did not have a formal response from the school district, however.
Okay.
But they do know about this. We just did not get a response.
Right. So one would hope that if in fact the applicant comes back and 83 lots or if it's 70 lots, depending on how that all comes together, that then the land cash gets updated and then the district hopefully by the meetings related to the preliminary submittal will have a position on the project or how they feel about it. Yes, typically. So if you would like to express your thoughts to the school board, you have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
Just to wrap up, I agree with what the neighbors, a lot of what the neighbors have to say, and my concern is you have a lot of green space that's isolated in certain areas that could be spread out throughout the development to buffer the neighboring lots. I think, I agree with you with lot sizes, but in this instance, we have, you have one entrance to this community, and I think it's hard to put that pressure, that traffic on Rosebud Drive when Rosebud Drive is an existing, basically a residential street. It'd be different if it was a larger street, and it isn't. So, and adding that boulevard is nice, but you're entering onto a smaller street, so it just doesn't really make any sense. So, in looking at the design, I would take into consideration, obviously, the neighbors' concerns, which is a big one, and then reworking it to where you're accommodating buffers, on at least three sides of the property, the north, the east, and the west, and, working out the entrance and maybe, and getting rid of that dead end on the south, and maybe there's an opportunity, speaking with the neighbors on parcel 6, to have two entrances. I don't know, but, I would talk to the neighbors and come back with a new design and reduce the number of lots you have to. So.
Yep. So Joe Bulgarelli, 4116 Meadowview. So I'm just curious about the Park District. Is there any precedent seeing as the seller is actually on the board of Park District? So how does that vote go, and is there a way to control any influence with that?
I'm not sure if the park board would have taken a formal vote on accepting land or cash at this conceptual stage. I would imagine if at any point they need to take a formal vote, that the property owner would need to recuse himself from that vote, but I'm not sure how the discussion went when they talked about this concept plan.
Yeah, because there's also influence outside of just that vote too, because of course they're on board together, and so is there any precedent for how something like that gets handled?
Not in my time here have I encountered this situation. So you could reach out to the Park District directly to ask their staff kind of how that's handled if you would like.
Yeah. I would recommend you speaking to the Park District, either the executive director, probably Holly Cable, or the superintendent.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And just for the record, Ellen, the cash rate is a fixed rate. It's set in code. It's not just an arbitrary number. It's a formula, correct?
That's right. There's a formula based on number of bedrooms, and it's all a spreadsheet that every single residential development has to follow the same per city code.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Correct. And that's for both school and Park District.
Yes.
And the decision on whether to take all of that in cash and or land is a decision that those boards make independently. They're not decisions that the city directly affects and can really change, honestly. There can be conversations, but at the end of the day, it's those boards that make those decisions. So if you have concerns or preferences, I encourage you to reach out to those boards. And I would just like to say I appreciate all of the time tonight by our applicant, as well as all of you for coming out. And I think that there's been probably a plethora of information provided, both for you, as their representative, and to their consultant team as they go back to look at this, and as MI decides, how far they want to proceed. At this point. And so I would encourage that all of these things get fair vetting by your team, and I think that I think on any project, and I think this body has provided that commentary on other projects, not just this one, but when you have differentiating densities, adjacent to other properties at lesser densities, I think that those are considerations for how to soften those topics and issues that really are super important. So the buffers and things like that, I think, do help people and the adjacent neighbors feel not only heard, but also that there was an action associated with that. And so I definitely would encourage this commentary to make its way to your design team, both your engineer and your planner. And I think there's an opportunity that only happens once on any subdivision, and that's, especially if you have existing trees, you get one shot to preserve them. You don't get to come back. So I feel that there's definitely some trees that should be preserved, can be incorporated, and I would encourage your team to truly look at that. It's not simple. Nobody said this process is, but I do think it's worth it, not only for the trees themselves, but I think how it changes the look of a neighborhood and how the character of an area. I think those things are invaluable to giving it a sense of place that you can't possibly replace with smaller, newer plantings that will eventually mature, but in the short term, there's no replacement. So I would encourage you guys to look at that. Thank you all, and we have only a few agenda items left, but thank you all. This will complete this item for this evening. We have public comment. I'm guessing that's done. Additional, will we have a meeting? Ellen, will we have a meeting in December?
I believe we'll have that first meeting in December.
Okay. Fine. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
9:50.